invest. I actually came to learn they were being told, no, we've had enough. We don't need you. We can't do that. But I've also heard of instances, and I'm speaking to somebody who is listening here in Kenya or out there. They have to come to Kenya, applied for tenders, won tenders on all fours, and then when they went to get their tender acceptance letter, they were told, before you get this tender, you have one more step to step. You need to pass. Go and see Mr. XY said. Apparently, the information I have is that some of the people who needed to be seen, if the four of us were here, are my competitors. Though you have passed all the steps for the tender, it cannot be approved until a final step, which is not in the official list, is approved. These are facts that are known, and people have said, how can we do this? You told us that it's above board. People know of offices in this country where people went to pay 10%, 20% after they had passed all the tenders. And some of those men and women are going to line up here in coming days, maybe after this or in other platforms, and say we'll fight corruption. Our problem has been corruption, almost in our veins. But I know Kenyans are not corrupt. Kenyans don't like corruption. We showed it in the year 2000. So we need to improve on that. We have had problems with power, infrastructure, both energy and infrastructure on the ground. Those are the issues that we need to discuss and we need to look into. We have had Kenyans who've gone out there or gained a lot of knowledge. They have wanted to come to Kenya and they have wanted to set up industries, manufacturing entities, to get things going. But bureaucracy, corruption, red tape has been our undoing.
Is this the reason why you are advocating for making public all the contracts, starting with SGR, the Expressway, the Lamu Port, Naivasha Dry Port, Kisumu Port? Is this the reason, part of the reason why?
Part of the reason, but the other reason, Ken, is that there is no way we can fight future corruption unless we do with the current and the past. We must have a discussion among Kenyans. And I know what you are referring to. You are referring to the fact that we have said we'll also establish a Truth and Recovery Commission. We must have a conversation and ask, why have we been this corrupt? Why have we allowed this much corruption? It's got to start there. For South Africa, it had to start there. Truth. The Truth Commission that was set up, it was a starting point and it was key. We must discuss and talk about that. But that's not all that we'll be doing in that. Actually, that will be part of it. We must still ask how much money went into the SGR. We need to know who are the KEMSA billionaires and why have their names not been read out and the money that they took away brought back into the country. The Honorable Deputy President of this Republic knows who they are. The former Prime Minister knows what they are. Professor Wajackoyah, they are being a person in the intelligentsia. And yet, they are not ready or willing to tell it. How can they fight corruption? How can they lead? How can you also lead when you are not ready to come on a podium like this and tell Kenyans what you want to do for them?
As we end the topic on economy, you mentioned earlier 15 trillion shillings that is stashed outside. You mentioned earlier 15 trillion shillings that is stashed outside.
Yes.
However, this could be the whole amount of money from Kenya that is outside, because the Brookings Institution says that about $12.5 billion. That's the only money that perhaps is illicit trade or illicit flow from Kenya to the other countries that is stashed outside. Why would you be going for even the investments that have been made by Kenyans outside and not specifically this money that has been flowing to other?
No, we'll go for everything, Ken. For me, that was read by the Minister of the 14.6, 15 trillion. It was the Minister for Finance. It was the Treasury Cabinet Secretary who said that. He had the facts, he had the intelligence, he must have spoken with State House and they knew about it. He pitched some executive summary had been sent round, so it was known. He had contacted foreign governments and known there is probably as much as that. So I find no reason why. I've seen other records that talk about 6 trillion, but you know, we've never had evidence that has been brought back. But let's even come back to Kenya. You and I have not even discussed the 2 billion. The 2 billion, which adds to 730 billion per year. I'll round it up to call it 1 trillion. That's what we lose per year. So if that is what we have lost per year, these last 5 years, that is 5 trillion. During the last 5 years, if everything worked that way, that was another 5 trillion, if my maths work right. What we are saying, even with the 2 billion, we could have paid the 8.2 trillion Kenya shillings. We could have done that from the 2 billion to there. I mean, this matter of corruption, siphoning public money, and what we've been doing has been our undoing. No country can develop with corruption. And with the level of corruption that we have had in this nation, no wonder we are still begging and our people are going hungry. I've just given the 2 billion. And for us, within Agano Party and with our experts, the 2 billion for us, we say can't even be a correct figure.
The 2 billion, Mr. Maura, the 2 billion from the Institute of Economic Affairs is not necessarily lost. It's been diverted to other uses. So if education was allocated 600 billion, perhaps they took a portion of it to another use, not necessarily lost. So when you do that sum totality, could be misleading us because this money was allocated to something and probably just diverted to another use and not the intended purpose. That's why we lack classrooms, for example.
The president of our nation did not lie. He said 2 billion is lost. 2 billion. 2
Do you
billion
believe
does
the president now?
2 billion does not get into the economy. And later he was heard to say in matters corruption, I mean, he had tried his best. The word he used was his hands were tied.
But the Institute of Economic Affairs says this money is not necessarily lost. It goes to other purposes.
The effect. Why do we have such Kenyans? Have Kenyans been going on other things? What has the Institute said? For me, I would say it's gone into people's pockets. For me, I would say part of that money would be on its way to some countries. I mean, the whole area of our financial fidelity, our being the shepherd I referred to, our doing what our brothers did. You see, from the word go, Singapore took such a firm and a stand concerning matters corruption. And I submit to us that that nation would not have been where it is if he had done so. No nation can develop with corruption. Rwanda has come up just lately. And look at what our brother is doing over there. I mean, phenomenal similarity. I need to emphasize that.
Okay.
Just recently, it's not even 1963. Give Rwanda another 5 years. Botswana, they also fought corruption.
Right,
you cannot move forward with corruption.
Let's just come back to here. And you spoke about Kenya needing... We need to be a food-secure nation. There is a very close link between food security and climate change. We are seeing droughts. Millions of people are starving in our country. Yet your manifesto speaks very little to climate change. What mitigation and adaptation measures is your government going to put in place to cushion Kenyans against climate shocks?
Climate change, the whole issue of the changing patterns of the weather is of concern to me and my team. Right now we are experiencing weather we have not had before. We have stopped talking of today was very hot or today was very cold, the way we defined it. We are now even going into what were the centigrades per day. You've noticed in our manifesto we've talked not just about measures we do, but even the fact that we would introduce taxation. We've noticed that. The first one is a poll tax for people who interfere with things that go into ensuring that we are not influencing the climatic changes that we are seeing, we have in Kenya, we are seeing in other nations. But it is very important in Kenya we have a discussion round about this matter. before we become industrialized, because we are going to be industrialized. We have seen what the gases from the industries have done to other nations. And we don't have to wait to get there for us to deal with that situation.
So how are you going to deal with it?
The things I have in mind is, it
A
is
reminder
time.
to our audience, please, as per the debate rules, no cheering, jeering, or noise. Do continue.
Yes, sorry, come again. What was that?
My question is
how? Let me give
how
you...
are you going to ensure Kenyans remain food secure vis-a-vis climate change? What measures does your
must
government
bring
have
education,
to put
that's
in
number
place?
one. We must tell Kenyans that our rivers are important, our forests are important. Enforce, we have laws that have to do with things that affect climate. But right now, you know, we have cut down about half the trees in Kenya. We must find ways of preserving our water. Kenya is very watered, but all the water goes to the ocean. We must come back even to a city like Nairobi and ask, why did we allow this building to be built next to a river? We must go to sources of water. Sources of water have been grabbed, and next to them, as much as developers can get, built houses. We must get to a point where we say, if something was done irregularly, it needs to be pulled down.
Mr. Waihiga, does the Agano Party have a plan to, in the wake of climate change and ensuring food security and therefore bringing down the cost of living? Do you have a plan?
We do have a plan.
What is that plan?
Because agriculture is very important to us. And if you'd have noticed, we've said that the office of the president will keep a very close eye to agriculture. Because without food security, we are going nowhere. We can't be begging those many years after we became independent and we started ruling ourselves. We have talked about the preservation of our rivers. We've talked about injecting money. We've talked about bringing subsidies that enable farmers to produce fertilizer. We've talked about that. We've talked about exploring markets. We've talked about getting Kenya to where it was in terms of agriculture. You know what? We are not short of studies. We are not short of, as a nation, of projects that have come into being. Galara would have been, it's a case study. It's a case study. The nation of Israel, and I can't purport to be their spokesperson, were disappointed, and very many nations have been disappointed. That was something, but look at what we did with it. It's amongst the scandals that we have in the Jubilee government. This is what I'm saying, we are not going to allow anymore. So we must, it is one of the two areas that my office as the president, if Kenyans are pleased to vote me, that one, agriculture, and the whole area of asset recovery, I've said it's something every day I'll keep an eye on. I would want a report on it. I would want to know what is happening. So we do have that. We recognize people are still going hungry. We want to recover our riparian lands. We want to bring education from the lowest grade on all these matters. We want to bring sensitization. And Kenyans are all very open-minded. They are tired. They want a change. They want to move forward.
Okay, and just before we move on to the next topic, let me just circle back to my first question under this topic of the economy. I asked how you intend to bring down the cost of living within the first 100 days, but I also asked by how much? What can Kenyans expect from you? How much do you intend to bring down the cost of living?
I think that the most I can talk of is by what I will do. It's by what I will do.
So you don't have an answer to that?
It's what I will do. I believe as a nation now that even our annual budget should not be 3 trillion. If we did things right, if we preserved our public funds, if we put them to the use they should, our annual budget should be going up to 10, 20 trillions instead of 3 trillion. If we had done things right, we should not be, and we are not unthankful, we are thankful, just rejoicing that we have got 22 kilometers expressway. This nation will be full of expressway, hundreds of miles. So I am really talking of, if I can give an estimate from here, I can't remember what we have said. Bringing the cost of living. I tell you what, even if out of my 20, 30 trillion Kenya shillings, which I believe is both out there and wasted, we got 10 trillion. This nation will be flipped upside down. I read something this week in one of the dailies. It was in the Nation newspaper. Let me give credit to an our report. And they say that the current road network, which we understand infrastructure, 11,000 kilometers, that's what we built. We built it with 1.5 trillion. Look at what 1.5 trillion can do. What if you have 10? What if you have 15? What if you have 20? Kenyans, I'm asking you to take a journey with me. Visualize, close your eye, and see a nation 59 years, what it should have been. The other nations we talk about, as I look at you, New York, London, Singapore would be looking up to Kenya. Okay. That's what I want to make Kenya to be.
Okay, and we can't end this topic before we talk about employment. It's a huge issue in the country right now, and a number of Kenyans are not employed, particularly those leaving school who are looking for jobs, and even the adult population. Some of them even above 40 years are not employed. And it says statistics also show that about 63% of Kenyans tonight will go to bed without a meal on the table. What is your plan for this group of people if you are elected president to create employment to this country? We've had promises of 1 million jobs a year, 800,000 jobs. What is the Agano plan for this?
Might I interject and ask also, how will you create more jobs in the formal sector?
Yes.
We have looked at that issue. It's close to our hearts. I feel you. I feel Kenyans because things are bad out there. Things are real bad. We have said in our manifesto that we will endeavor to create employment at all levels. With the 2010 Constitution, we went devolvement. And one of the things we have said in our manifesto that when we bring our funds back, when we stop the siphoning, the 2 billion, when we arrest those people who have made it impossible for the government or the president to move forward, we will give from the national office 40% to the devolved units. And we have said out of that, that is far above even that's above the 35 that BBI was promising. That even beyond that, we want to ensure that 50 million at least goes to the lowest unit of development, which is the village council. And there are people who would say, how would that happen? And what benefit will it have? For us, we devolved money. Unfortunately, we also devolved corruption, but we never devolved decision-making. We are interested, we want Kenyans to decide what they want to do from the lowest unit, the mtaa, the village, the nyumba kumi. And why is this important? Because some part of the job creation will come from there. It is there they will decide we need a road to this area, we need to make a cattle dip if there are areas without. Is there they will decide that we need to have this milk processing. And out there, there are so many youth. It is down at that level where they know their needs are. So that is one way that we'll be able to do that. Secondly, we will be injecting money. I think the picture I would like to bring out to all Kenyans and those listening is, I am not just proposing things we'll do, but I am saying in my government we will have money, and that the money is somewhere. If the money we are talking about comes, we have talked about how we should be able even to give to the youth, to give to the workers, not less than 500 billion Kenya shillings. Because assume that money comes back, or even half of it, or even a quarter of it. Look at the wonders it can do. We've also talked about skills as being important. People need skills. We've talked about giving money to young people so that they can do startups. We've talked about getting rid of certain taxations so that Kenyans can be able to move forward. So we've talked again at bringing back cottage industries. And there's a sense in which they are coming back. Because like when I was growing up in my home area, I was born and grew up in Nakuru County. And in a small town known as Turi, I remember when I was very young, and that's many years, in the early 70s, there was this small place where they were building hooks and they were exporting them. And I know the young people from the area. Okay. Then I was in primary school. I could see them proudly because there was something in the neighborhood that they were doing. In my hometown also of Molo, we had things and concerns that were going on. We had, these last 20 years, we have had a potato industry. The last I heard about it, it hadn't started off. And I'm saying taking industries. So we have had what we are calling pesa mashinani, madaraka mashinani. Let decisions be made there. So we will inject money.
Okay.
We will inject goodwill.
A potential voter for you has a question for you. Let's take the question.
My name is James Monia, working in Nairobi. And this is my question to all candidates. How will your government support institutions that promote police reforms and professionalism within the police service so that we don't have cases of police brutality and the cases of extrajudicial killings?
Do I go ahead?
Yes.
We will be a government of the rule of law. And I need to say that among the other things that have brought us down is impunity. And impunity is disregard of the law. Impunity is a situation where those who are in power are not brought into book. They seem to be above the law. And it's not like we don't have institutions. We will strengthen judiciary. We will strengthen our investigative units. We will pay them well. We've talked about that. We have, in our manifesto, we have talked about 12 covenants, and one of them is covenants with men and women in uniform. We will give them modern machinery. We will get them we will give them freedom to make decisions, you know, in the sense there will be no interference. We will strengthen the offices and other agencies, EACC, that deal with anti-corruption, asset recovery. And in matters extrajudicial killing, we'll bring back the rule of law. It's because of impunity. You know, corruption comes with a lot of things. It comes with all those evils and